the refugee crisis. As I understand it, I wasn't here a year ago, but at the conference a year ago, there was a debate provoked by the fact that German news organizations, in TV in particular, would not use the word migrant, use the word refugees. And then I wanted to get Mr. Farage to respond to that. Did you not create, in part, the very problem you're now having to wrestle with?
I agree that we have not really listened enough to the people. I agree on that. But I don't think that just because somebody is demanding, we should throw overboard some rules in Germany that we actually have for a good reason. During the Nazi regime, people were actually the government was using the ethnic background of people in connection with criminal cases or criminal events to really tell the public that the Jews were behind it, or the Sinti and Roma were behind it, and so on. So therefore, we had a rule that you have to be reluctant to call out the ethnic background if it's not directly related to the case and important to understand the case. Yep. So I think there's a good reason to not throw that overboard. But I have to add one thing. So what do we have to do differently? I think we don't have to treat the politicians or the populace differently from any other politician. We have to change the way we treat politicians, meaning we have to ask the questions that the people have about the solutions. And we also have to come up with formats that help us to do that. Maybe it's a good idea to throw politicians into a room, into an escape room, and ask them for a solution, and they cannot get out before they actually come up with the solution.
They'll be in there for a while.
That's my last sentence, if I may.
Last sentence, okay.
If we do that, then we will have more informed citizens, we will have more responsible politicians, and less populists like Mr. Farage and Donald Trump.
I think we're having a really interesting conversation, but I'm still worried it's too polite a conversation.
Well, it won't be now.
I don't want us to be polite.
It won't be now.
We are, let's be clear what we're talking about. We are talking in France of the possibility someone who would widely be regarded as a Nazi by some people becoming the next president. In AfD, there are parties that people regard as Nazis. Now, there are plenty of people who don't. But let's stop being too polite. What I'm trying to get to the bottom of, I want to go back to the question I asked you about the pub, Nigel.
Yeah, I love pubs.
If in that pub, in that bar, there are people saying, and I'm going to say it, refugees, they're dirty, they rape our women, they have values, they shouldn't come in, should that be part of our coverage?
Well, or
are we saying that crosses a line, it's unacceptable, it won't be said?
Get
Nigel first.
I think what we got wrong last year, and you're quite right, it was this use of words, wasn't it? Hardly any of the roughly 1.8 million people that came into the EU last year, hardly any of them would have qualified as refugees under the Geneva Convention.
That's not true.
They would. Well, of course.
True. I'm sorry. We talked about facts, and we talked about holding people to account. That is not true.
Yes, it is.
If you are fleeing Syria, you are unquestionably a refugee.
Well, you are a displaced person.
No. Under international law, you are a refugee and you are entitled to protection. You are not a migrant.
I tried very hard to make a plea for the refugee case for the Christians in Syria.
But to our colleague's point, it's irrelevant.
And I was told that religion had nothing to do with it. Actually, traditionally, with people being granted refugee status, religion nearly always is absolutely at the core of it. So there is a fundamental imbalance here between how I feel on this and you feel on this.
Right, because I've been
to
Syria 5 times since the civil war began. And I have seen the suffering that actually, I believe, personally, the West has not done enough to protect people who are fleeing being bombed by their own government. Those are refugees. They are not migrants. They are not economic migrants.
According to the UNHCR, there are 59 million displaced people through wars and conflicts around the world. Right. When we talk traditionally about refugees, we're talking about people under the Geneva Convention who are going to be persecuted because of their ethnicity, their race, their orientation, or their views. And as I say, hardly any of the 1.8 million directly came into that category. But what's interesting is, I mean, that's the issue, but we're talking about the media here. What's really interesting is the German doublespeak that we've just had from the front row. You know, on the one hand, yeah, we've listened. Oh, whoa, yeah, we've listened. We're going to treat the AFD normally. Then I'm called a populist liar. Why am I a populist? Is that because I represent a kind of politics that you don't like? So I'm not on. So I'm not on a democratic equivalent to anybody else.
You're using falsehoods.
So you use this
You're using
pejorative
falsehoods
term
and lies
of
to
populism.
further your political cause
Well, I'm
and
sorry,
recruit
old son.
people.
Hold on, hold on,
I'm
hold on.
sorry.
We can't-
You are
we don't
talking about
understand.
Islamization of Europe.
Yeah.
There is none. If you look at the numbers and the empirical research, there is none. But you are using it to instill fear into the people in order to get the votes from those people.
Do you know
don't
something?
have any
Do you know something?
solutions to the problem.
Do you know something?
You are lying, Mr. Farage.
You know, your deep prejudice, and maybe...
No, we can discuss the numbers if you
maybe
like.
mainstream media is going down the tubes if people like you stay in senior positions. I didn't even mention the issue of Islam once. I didn't mention it once.
Hold on. You
didn't.
mentioned the radical Islam.
I said
For
you need to
Islam
talk
is
about
all
it.
the same.
Now, you're very good at talking. Try a bit of listening. Maybe all of you should do a little bit more of that. I did not mention the issue of the Islamization of Europe. I didn't mention it once. Didn't talk about it at all in the referendum campaign. Not once. It was not even part of our debate or part of our narrative. But the idea that actually, you're the people that have been lying. You're the ones that have been telling us the euro would be good for us.
Sorry,
political union would be good for us.
You and UKIP are together with all the
unacceptable?
right-wing populist parties in Europe, in the European Parliament, who are actually making this case that we are facing an Islamization of Europe.
But I don't sit with them, do I? But I don't sit with them, do I? Or don't you know that?
Oh, you had conversations, plenty of them, with them.
In the coffee room. Bloody hell, I must have done something awful.
No, I'm sorry.
I?
UKIP is coordinating in part some of the actions, the political action and propaganda with other parties like the AFD in Germany.
It's very sweet of you to think of me, you know, sitting somewhere, stroking a white cat, planning the downfall of Western civilization. But I'm sorry to tell you it's not true. And I find it remarkable that just because I have a different view of the world to you, all you can do is throw abuse, call me a liar, and say I'm a populist. And it says more about you than it does about me.
We can talk about the numbers. You are refusing to do that.
Let me just be clear what fact you're trying to get to the bottom of. What are you alleging that Mr. Farage has said?
That the right-wing populists in Europe across the board are basically using the numbers of increasing the number of Muslims in Europe, basically telling people that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, there will be a Muslim majority in Europe, which is plainly wrong. And if you look at the numbers, then you can see that, but this is withheld by those parties. Let
Mr. Farage answer, and then I want to bring Katie in. I think Edgy.
Well, this is not part of my debate. I mean, I'm not worried about Islam at all. And we have a lot of, I've had significant Islamic support, activists joining my party. I'm worried about radical Islam, and I'm worried that people like you might not be actually telling the truth about it.
Katie Zill.